So really, in the process of making that I kind of find meaning and discovery, and sometimes I have to kind of remind myself again of this. I can get quite concerned about what it is I'm making and what it's going to be and its kind of form. And often I kind of leave things for a while and then they come into something else. And I quite like that kind of in a state of flux. My name's Esme Bone. I'm an artist and I work with drawing and sculpture. I guess sculpture is more new to me, and I'm kind of had to remind myself recently that it is really in the process of making that's really important to me. Because in drawing I have this kind of freedom and it's this real like process of releasing, and I kind of really understand that process for me. I think drawing really is at the centre of my work, and sometimes I feel like the sculptures are almost drawings in themselves. But I think I'm trying to sort of not label anything too much. I think an exploration of line is in there in both of them, and the relation to the body. Sometimes I draw to plan a sculpture or if I'm thinking about sculpture, and sometimes I draw and things emerge from the drawings. Also becoming more interested in kind of bringing things together in a kind of temporary way, and so it's kind of a loose joining or bringing together of things instead of something that's like really tightly fixed and with a final form. And I think I prefer to have my sculptures with soft edges, and I like the idea of just kind of assembling things together to be seen in one way and then just to take it down, and maybe it can be something else later on and then see what happens.
There's a lot of there's a lot of dysfunction in my work. Nothing really works. Nothing's really made to work. It always falls slightly short of working or making sense in as a viable object. I think we've got to remember that being alive doesn't necessarily fulfill a function. My name's Dominic Rose. I'm an artist based in Margate. I work primarily in sculpture, photography and found objects. So these were a series of bronze potatoes that I've made. The reason I was interested in the potato is that this thing with little value, either aesthetic or financial, and yet the potato is it's an incredibly important foodstuff. It can keep you alive. Once they're cast in bronze, as an art object, they have significantly more value, but they no longer fulfill any of the function of the potato. The making has become much more important in the last couple of years, and I think it's something that was waiting to emerge in my work. I try to give as much thought and agency to the materials and to the artifacts that I work with. In reality, that manifests itself in things kind of doing their own thing. There are a few reasons why I like dealing with waste material. One is that it's got a kind of archaeology about it. It's got a story that new materials don't have. Once something is useless, it's quite interesting where that fits in society, because if it's useless but it's not waste, and that might be the position that my art takes, it's something. It's got to be something else, and art allows you to play with that set of relationships.
I get really influenced by everyday stuff, like everyday life. So like cooking, um, like walking on the street and finding some objects that I like, or things that seem like sort of magical, and also thinking about my life back in Italy as well. Sometimes I think of the mountains because I come from the mountains, or I think about the food there and like being with my family. I think I find something in my like childhood memories, and they become part of my work. I'm Anna and I'm an artist. I work with sculpture, drawing, and materials are really important to me, and my process sees putting together different materials, mostly natural or found. I do get inspired by the natural world a lot. I look at materials that deteriorate and that don't last, but they also have a domestic quality. But it's normally about finding what I have at hand. So if I'm cooking and I see something interesting, I take the material with me. Sometimes they could be objects as well, so or materials that I already have in the studio, like leftovers materials. And I'm really interested in the process of assembling the materials together and see what I can find out during the process. It's always changing as it ages with time, and the process is really important because it's where I learn about materials, I learn about connection between materials and things that I use, and I learn about myself as well.
I wanted people to be able to look at a piece of visual art in the same way that they listen to a piece of music and really take it in. And the solution seemed to be in this installation art, where in fact you create an interior inside a given space, and people are if they're drawn in, once they're inside, they're almost a captive audience. In fact, installation is a way of creating theatre without any actors. But I wanted the people themselves to become the actors within the space, the viewers to become the actors. And I didn't know that that actually was a key to a practice which I'm very involved with now, which is participatory art. My name is Willow Winston. I committed myself as an artist pretty much 50 years ago, because it's truthful. You can be as truthful as you dare to be. Most of these paintings are collaborative, and that means that maybe 5, maybe 10 people have contributed to the finished object. I find these books fascinating. I just find that what happens when you put these disparate patterns together that have no relationship with each other, you think, but each one of these is, these little books is an example of a group of people coming together with all their differences and managing to make a strange kind of harmony. It's really, it's, you know, to find the common ground between things which are very different. And what happens is that you get one patterning next to another that you wouldn't have seen before, and in fact can make really, I think, really interesting and beautiful paintings by the combination, by this unseen juxtaposition of ideas. I've always considered that art is the most useful thing I could do, by the way, even when I was making my individual pieces for people to come and stare at and say, oh wow, how beautiful, kind of thing. Because beauty is behind the whole thing. And I do love the people that I work with.
photography. Kiss me the color green, and then say rain. Drip, drop, drip, drop, and then say rain, and then say rain. Rain, rain, say the color rain. Kiss me the color rain.
I've been working a lot with spirituality and illness, and specifically how we can access a higher spirituality within ourselves to overcome the feeling of illness. I struggle with endometriosis, and I use this as a way to process it, really. My name's Sophie Parker. I'm an artist experimenting in movement and installation. Endometriosis is where the lining of the uterus grows in different areas of your body. I suffered with it since I was about 16. I can go from being really well and moving a lot and being lively to then the next day being bedridden and being in quite a lot of pain. I'm looking at sort of meditation as medication. So working through the body to sort of detach from pain. I start off with a meditation before I do every session, which is actually a mediumship meditation for meeting your guide, which helps me sort of relax and get into the right headspace and detach from that physical pain. And then from there, I work with 7 movements that I sort of correspond with different parts of my cycle, so going from the easiest to the worst parts. And so I do that before I then start moving in an improvisation sort of way. So movement has become quite a big part of performance, and then I record that and use it in installation, and I'm working towards live performance as well. I'm looking at rhythm specifically, and a 7/4 rhythm because it's unfinished and irregular, so it meets with my irregular rhythms of my body with endometriosis. I'm quite real and it's quite autobiographical with the performance of how I'm feeling, but there is a performance element to it, and I think there's a performativity to mediumship itself. I was looking at spirituality more as the product at the beginning, so I was creating stuff a lot about spirituality, and now that has become an integral part of my process. So rather than it always being the outcome, it's something that's embedded in my routine, really.
Are you making a long distance call?
Oh, bless me.
I mean, you know, we're all born into a world that we didn't create, and we inherit histories, narratives that we didn't write. And I was always looking for a place that I could find my own voice and create my own history or my own version of the world that made sense to me, in the vain hope that it might make sense to somebody else. My name's Nicola Roper, and I'm an artist working in mixed media, predominantly film, photography and sound. So my background is in documentary filmmaking, and I am interested in how stories present themselves within our society and how we can record emotion that doesn't fall into a storytelling cliche or trope. I very much want to disrupt the narrative structure, as I think we are very oversaturated by narrative. Certainly for me, that oversaturation removes yourself from yourself. So we become blind in our bodies to a way, we become blind to feeling without description. The main struggle I find, or the main question I ask myself, is how do I keep my creative practice alive? How do I keep a connection to the practice and a connection to the audience? And for me, that's in a constant, it's in repetition, it's in layering, it's in obscuring, but mostly it's in a constant retelling, relooking and rethinking.